Today, we're hitting the ice and diving deep with the chiropractic mastermind behind the Stanley Cup winning Golden Knights, Dr. Jeffrey Prince. From the icy realms of Canada to the scorching heat of Vegas, Dr. Prince's 19-year journey in chiropractic care has been nothing short of legendary. Get ready to discover the secrets of treating pro athletes, his views on healthcare across borders, and tales of hip-checking and hard-hitting concussions. Whether you're a sports buff or just here for the spine-tingling insights, gear up for a roller coaster ride with the man who's not just cracking backs, but also the code to chiropractic excellence in the sports world.
All right, Dr. Prince, how are you, buddy?
Doing
and,
good.
It's so glad to have you on here. And, Dr. Spencer and I are junk food junkies when it comes to sports chiropractic, anything to do with pro sports. We just go crazy on that stuff. And with sports comes swag. And you got to carry some of the best swag in town. You got to carry the Stanley Cup over your head. And if my information is right, you're Canadian, which that's like carrying the Holy Grail over your head. So my question to you, what's your biggest highlight in life? Carrying that Stanley Cup or getting married?
Getting married.
Good answer. Good.
Followed by 3 kids. Then yes, the Stanley Cup.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now tell us really how you feel. No.
Okay, we'll go off air and
edit
then
it
we can
out.
just talk
Yeah,
the real
right.
stuff.
The best part about that is my wife, as excited as I was, she may have been even more excited for all of that than I was. She's a pretty voracious hockey fan. You almost don't want to be sitting in the stands next to her if one of our players is treated unfairly as she deems it.
So you're from Canada, though. And how did you end up in
Edmonton,
Vegas? Yeah. How did you end up there?
Long story short, or long story long, I served my LDS mission in Las Vegas from 94 to 96. That's where I kind of learned that there was a city beyond that one road.
True, right?
And then there was a chiropractor in Las Vegas that treated us missionaries for free. And that got me interested in a possibility of going that direction with healthcare. Came home, got married, went to Chiro school in Iowa. And one of the families that I was friends with on my mission, their son was out there at the same time. His name was Kelly. And he was helping me move in. I didn't realize it. We connected, became best friends, hung out all the time at school. And then after school was over, went our separate ways. I went back to Edmonton, Sherwood Park. And then he went back to Vegas, southern Utah area. And then we've been almost here 6 years now. So probably about 10 or 11 years ago, he started pestering me to move down to Vegas and work with him. And the first time it wasn't the right move. That's a big move, 3 kids, different education, different country, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then about 2 or 3 years later, he came back to me and asked me again, and it felt right this time. And so we went through the whole process and green cards and in the middle of that process, we stumbled into the Golden Knights.
How long ago was that?
That would have been 2016, 17.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What's the difference for you between Canada and Vegas, healthcare system wise? Give me an idea of what you experienced as a culture shock.
There's a few things that it's almost like in Canada we're told to fear the American healthcare system. And for some reason thinking that we've got it perfect, which we don't. My oldest son has epilepsy and had 3 pretty significant brain surgeries before we moved down. But in order to get in to see his neurologist, it would take 5 or 6 months to get him in to see him. And that wasn't a life-threatening illness, thank goodness, but it took forever. So there's downsides to both and there's positives to both. Yeah, it was nice at the end of all that not to have a bill, but your taxes are higher. So it's just, it's trade-offs. It's trade-offs.
Yeah.
I would say there's strengths to both and weaknesses to both.
So you're feeling about do you miss socialized medicine at all, or? Do you like what you got
we're
going
6 years in.
Yeah.
Not really. No.
Wow. All right. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
but we're also a pretty healthy family, right? Like we try to live pretty
Right.
healthy, and none of us smoke or drink or do any of that stuff. So, and not that that necessarily means you're going to be unhealthy, but the less of those things you do, the less you lead yourself into unhealthiness, I guess.
Well, a lot of people, there's a lot of chiropractors and chiropractic students that listen. There's a lot of regular folks that listen to the podcast. How did you get involved with the pro teams that you did, especially the first one?
So the Golden Knights. So we were in the process of already moving to Las Vegas. And I was still working with the sports and rehab facility back in Edmonton. And one of my patients was the captain of the University of Alberta Golden Bears hockey team. And I was treating him, and we got to talking, and I was already in the process. And he's like, "Hey, I've got I can't remember now. I'd have to go back and look at the email, but it's like an uncle or like an uncle's friend who was part of Bill Foley's management group down here. And it was before the team didn't even have a name yet. And he said, "Do you want me to contact my uncle and see if they're looking for a chiropractor?" Sure.
That's great.
And that's literally almost how easy it was. So within 2 days, I get CC'd on an email that he sent to this. His name is Rod Buskus. He's now an airline pilot for Hawaiian Airlines. He used to play for the Vegas Thunder in the IHL. And he emailed us back pretty quick and said, "Yeah, I'll refer you to the president, to the senior vice president. His name is Murray Craven. And for people that know hockey, they know that name, and I knew that name because he used to play against my Oilers." But no one else knew, so I told Kelly. He's like, "I don't know who that is." And I'm like, "Well, I'm about to." It was exciting for me to email Murray Craven. So same thing. I don't know if you're interested in a chiropractor. Here's our credentials, and he's like, "Yeah, once again, we haven't hired the person that's going to do that hiring. So when we do, I'll pass your name along."
Wow.
And then we didn't hear anything for 3 or 4 months. So you're like, they must have found someone in Vegas, and that's all right. But then in July or August of 17, I got an email from Jay Millette, and the subject line of the email said, "Vegas Golden Knights chiropractor needs." So I ran in the house and showed my wife, and we both about flipped a pancake, and then literally we did a FaceTime interview, went well. And then I flew down and met with him and Kelly at his place with the rest of the medical team, and we were hired on the spot.
Oh,
wow.
How great is that? Now, ridiculous question. I mean, were you in Canada, were you already doing sports injuries? Was that a passion, or did you do geriatrics and all of a sudden it just felt in your lap?
No, definitely the way I practiced and partially the way Kelly practiced. Like I've certified in active release technique. Now I do dry needling, and I'd taken different courses of TMJ management, these sorts of things. But ART is honestly the biggest thing that these guys look for in a chiropractor. They want to be able to have the adjustment, but they want that soft tissue work for sure. So I had worked with, there's a few, I don't know if you know the player John Boychuk, used to play for the Bruins. He's from Edmonton, so he would come back every summer, and I would see him on a weekly basis in his off season and treat him and get him up to speed. And then having worked with the Canadian Athletics Coaching Center, Dr. Larry Bell, who you've had on, I for a very short period of time worked with him at one of the seminars. So, and then working with, we have a big track meet up in Edmonton. It's a money meet, like a gold something meet. I can't remember what they're called. Anyway, where they've got some pretty high profile athletes come up there, and we would go treat them too.
That's fantastic. Okay, so the burning question is, because time is a commodity. You have 3 kids. You have a loving wife. You have a full-time practice. You know where this is going, right? Like, how do you juggle the Raiders, the Aces, the Knights? How do you do it?
Well, it started with the Knights. So when I came down, I worked with them specifically, and luckily we're in a clinic here that all the patients are patients of the clinic, and we all treat all the patients. So there's not so much specific, these are mine, these are this doctor's, these are this doctor. So it's easier to leave for a period of time and let people know. And then honestly, when you tell people where you're going, they're like, oh, that's cool. I'll see you when you get back.
Right.
And then we got the Raiders as a result of the Knights. So from what I understand, we have some higher profile clients that were involved with bringing the Raiders here and were patients of ours. And so they helped kind of grease the wheels. But I think ultimately, when there's only one other pro sports team in town of the four big ones, when they come to town, they're going to contact the only other one that's there and be like, okay, who do you guys use? Who are your guys? And I think that's how that worked out. So the clinic, the two brothers, Kelly and Adam, owned this clinic before. Kelly just recently bought out his brother. So Kelly and Adam did most of the Raiders work. And then I did Golden Knights. I'm going to be doing some Raiders this year. And luckily with the Raiders and Golden Knights, they don't overlap that much. So like they're done February, right? If you make the Super Bowl, you're done first, second week of February.
And then you spend time with the kids on days when you're not.
Yeah. My kids are older
machine.
Too, right? Like I'm almost an empty nester.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah,
you and I have that in common.
My oldest son's getting married in December, and my daughter's at home, but she works at Starbucks, and they pay for your first degree, so she's doing online school. And my youngest is just about to head off to the Utah Air National Guard, and then on to be a commercial pilot.
Very nice. Very
awesome.
nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So the medical professionals that are with all the teams and so on, how do you get along with them? What's your experiences like?
Very good. And I would say probably the biggest reason for that was, I would say my former boss, his name is Jay Millett. He's the guy that sent me that email. So he was the head athletic trainer and director of sports performance for the Vegas Golden Knights. After we won the cup, we got an email and found out that he was being moved, I guess you would say. Bill Foley also owns a Premier League soccer team, AFC Bournemouth. So Jay got moved to be the director of sports performance there. So we've got a new quote unquote boss. So to answer your question, when Jay interviewed me and Kelly at his place that day, he said, honestly, you guys, the chiropractor's been the hardest hire that I've had to make for this group. And, the obvious question is, why is that? He's like, because they're the alphas in their clinic. And when they come into the team, sometimes these guys want to take over and they want to be in charge. And that's not how this is going to work. Like it all has to funnel through me, who's an athletic trainer. And so everyone's got to kind of check their egos at the door. The maxillofacial surgeon, the orthopedic surgeon, the hand surgeon, the emergency doctor, and all these guys that have more education than he does, but we all want to be part of this team. We all want to have the chance to do what we did 2 months ago. And so it was Jay. Jay is the reason why we get along so well, because he hired the right people.
That's great.
I get along with all of them extremely well. And then just because we're all the same type of people, check your ego at the door, have fun with the team, know your role within the team, know who to talk to. Talking to the athletic trainers, what are you seeing? Here's what I see. Here's what I would do. What do you think we should do? Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Love that. In fact, that it's worth reiterating is how it's the athletic trainer's house. Yeah. And you're in it as a guest. And he's responsible for millions of dollars worth of bodies. So you better listen up. And it's so funny to hear some chiropractors don't get that. It's as Dr. Alan Sokoloff always says, we need to play well together in the sandbox, So,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So with that said, you don't have to answer the next question because it may be a little controversial, but we have something that's been very politicized, men's teams, women's teams. What are your thoughts on the transgenders playing in women's sports, since you work both groups in soccer?
I mean, I would say that my personal opinion is you can't have, and this is just me, I'm not speaking for the clinic or the team or anything.
Fair enough.
I don't think biological men can be competing against women. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
But to boil it down to to its roots. That's what I think. But
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, just so you know, we agree with you.
Yeah.
I have no problem with a separate category, and
100%.
so everybody's equal, but especially, I saw you work with the WNBA, and you get a guy that played D1 ball as a biological male, and he decides to switch. It's not going to be fair.
No.
So yeah,
No.
it's nice to hear you, because that's something that Dr. Spencer and I have been talking about a lot with different athletes, and fairness is fairness.
Well, and then the other thing is to come at it from a place of understanding and humility, right? Like when you come at it with your hackles up and you're angry, you're not going to make any headway.
Yeah. And in fact, I think there was a powerlifting record that was just broken in women's power
in Canada. I think, was it in Canada?
Yeah, I think so. Can you talk to somebody up there? Come on.
If I had those connections,
yeah,
I would.
Hey, Doc, you brought up something that kind of got my attention, and that's the way you're practicing, where you said you guys don't have patients. You just, the patients are of the clinic. And I think so many chiropractors, even physical therapists and orthopedics, they're so dominant about having their patients and all that. Can you tell us how you set that up and how it works?
So first of all, I didn't set it up. It was here when I got here. So they bought this practice from a previous doctor, I think probably 15 years ago, but that's how it worked. So it's nice because it checks your egos, right? And it forces you to be the best you can be. So look, if someone comes in and they have a patient request that they want to see me or someone else, they can. But typically, almost all the patients are happy seeing any of the doctors. So then it's also incumbent upon Kelly and myself in the coming future to make sure you got the right doctors so that you can have a good experience across the board, but then also have a variety of options too. One of our chiropractors he's one of my favorite guys, but he's a little more straight than I am, which is fine. And we joke about it, but he doesn't do ART or some of this other stuff. And there's some people that like that sort of chiropractic. Okay, then you can go see Dr. Lucas, and that's awesome. And I'm glad that we have him here for you. If you want some Graston or some dry needling, or along with the adjustment, or even for some of our older patients, the osteopenia, osteoporosis, we have a pro adjuster. I'm not a huge fan of the research behind it. That's just me. But it allows us to do something to them, even if they can't be manually manipulated.
Like, fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, so on that, you talk about the different adjustments and stuff like that. How do you, for the audience, how do you work with your athletes? How do you change your thought process when it comes to practice? How you work on versus games? How you work on, and then playoffs? Because you're dealing with also different mentalities as well. What remains the same, and what kind of changes with how you put things together?
So during the season, I'm just with them when they're at home. I do not travel with them during the season. It's only in the playoffs. So that's different. So when I go treat them at the training facility in Summerlin, I'm there for 2 hours. And it used to be at the start that they would have a little schedule and they'd write their names on it. But these are essentially 8-year-olds that play a game. And they'll fully admit that. Like, that's not an insult to them. They're just these young boys that get to hang out together and play hockey and do fun things. So we'd stop doing the schedule, and I would just go up to the training room and be there, and they would come and see me as they want. So some guys come to me and purely want to be adjusted. That's fine. Most guys want a little bit of muscle work. Some guys want a lot of muscle work. Some guys I'm with for 20 minutes. There's some guys that I treat after every single game. Like, every game I go to, there's players in particular that want to see me after every game. So some of that's routine. Some of that's more the ones that see me all the time is more routine. But then, yeah, there's injuries that come up, like between the periods. I don't know if you guys watched much of the playoffs, but the game where we finished off Edmonton, a player came in and he had just a little bit of a sore back, and he just felt like it wasn't moving that grade, and we adjusted in between the first and second, and then he went out and scored a hat trick, and we won the game.
Oh.
You have a guy in the team, and I'm sorry for blanking on his name. I know he feeds the ball to Marchessault a lot, or the puck. Excuse me. He got pounded. I mean, there's a couple of games where he got almost knocked out.
Yes.
And then you see him just go straight to the locker room.
Well, that one hit, the one hit in game. Was it? I think it was game 1.
Yeah, talk us through that. What happened?
Well, he got crushed by Matthew Tkachuk. Obviously, I can't share everything, things that go on in the back room. But I mean, if you've watched the ESPN documentary Quest for the Cup, it actually was in the locker room. And after that hit, Stevenson's looking across the locker room to Jack and's like, "Hey, Jack, are you okay?" He's like, "You look a little white." He's like, "I'm fine. I just got the wind knocked out of me." So, I mean, we've all ridden with our friends when we were 5 years old on the handlebars of their bike, and you fall and hit and then you make that weird noise that I'm not going to make right now, where you can't breathe. And then finally you're moments away from calling 911 because you think that's it. And then all of a sudden you're like, turns out I'm all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's
pretty
much what happened.
He's not a big guy, but there's some hits that guy's one of the toughest guys I've ever seen. These hits that man was taking. And then he would just get up and he'd get hit again, he'd get up. And all I could think about is I asked, and we'll go into it later, but I asked Dr. Spencer who the chiropractor for the Knights was. And all I could ask is, that guy's going to be busy on just that one man.
Well, but if you remember the circumstances under which we got Jack Eichel. So he was in Buffalo, and they were unwilling to allow him to go through the disc replacement procedure in the anterior of the neck, because no NHL player had ever done that before, ever. So they were not willing to take the risk on their guy. And he basically said, he's like, "Well, this is what I'm doing. I've talked to my agent. I've talked to all these professionals, and this is the best path forward for me." And so they were at loggerheads, and finally they traded for him. And the day after the trade, he was in Colorado getting the surgery. I met his surgeon in the off season. He was the same surgeon that did the surgery on Mark Stone, this most recent one. And so that when that hit was laid in game 1, that was everyone's big concern, right? Was the neck.
Right.
But he was fine. Yeah. And you are right. Compared to a lot of guys on the team, he's not that big, but when you see him walking around with his shorts on and stuff, he's like most of these guys with hockey, he's like a brick, just super, super solid, right?
Wow. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one last question. When you're growing up in Canada, I mean, you're a Canadian, snow. Part of my.
I mean, that's pretty much it. It's just snow.
And it's fucking cold. I mean, Edmonton's
so cold,
fucking
man.
cold. Yeah. And I did my honeymoon. I spent some time. Bill Jacobs is a good friend of mine. I'm actually going to Steep and Deep this year, and so it's like, it's fucking cold. Did you ever think that you would be working with the #1 hockey team in the world in a desert?
No.
In a desert.
No. I mean, I'll tell you this quick story, and being a believer, the chess pieces have been moved for me and my family. We feel extremely blessed to be where we are. So the whole process of my son with the surgeries, and the first time Kelly asked, it didn't feel right, and the next time, and that patient of mine, and then we get down here. So that, I mean, our first year we went to the Stanley Cup final against Washington. Like that was,
Jeez.
And I'm at every game, I'm meeting media guys that I've only ever seen on TV in Canada, and I'm like rubbing elbows with them, like, "Oh, hey Jeff, how's it going?" And I'm like I'm texting my friends back at home and be like, "Guys, I just met Ron McLean and Don Cherry. I got my picture taken with them," and they just, their minds are blowing. So we get down here, and we literally got down here January 1st of 18. Playoffs start in April. And I wasn't going to travel with the team. So we played LA in the first round. We beat them the first 2 games at home. And then one of the players on the team needed something when they were in LA, and talked to Jay and said, "Where's Jeff? Like, why isn't Jeff here?" And so Jay called me, and I was at church on Sunday, and he's like, "What are the chances you could be on a plane flight as soon as we can book it to come out to LA to work on the team?" So I pulled my wife out of Sunday school, and I'm like, "Yo, what do you think?" She's like, "Go, do it." Yes. So flew out there, treated the guys, and then flew back the next day before the game. Then when they came back, we swept them that round. Jay pulled me aside. He's like, "Look, I know we talked about how we want you at every single home game. Maybe you should just travel with us now." Because apparently the guys there's enough guys that want to see you. It would be worth it. And, you'll get compensated for traveling with us and stuff. I was like, all right. So that was that.
That's great.
But then being with them that first round, my moment in my head, my kind of, I can't believe this is happening moment was we won the Western Conference against Winnipeg game 5. And I've become friends with some of the guys on the team, like Nate Schmidt was a good friend, big Star Wars fan like me. I'm a pretty big nerd. So I'm sitting on the charter plane with my solo cup full of Dr. Pepper and my Western Conference championship hat. So we get on first, the players come on next, and they come marching past with the cup, with the trophy. And Nate Schmidt puts his foot up on my armrest. He's like, "Princey, did you wear your Star Wars socks?" I said, "You damn right I wore my Star Wars socks." And he's like, I wore mine too. And he's like, "Lift up my pant leg." So he was wearing his Chewbacca socks, and just
No.
so moments like that, when you ask the question, did I have it? Like, and then people in Edmonton, you're like, "How could you not be an Oilers fan anymore?" I'm like, well, look, I still like the Oilers, but man, when you have relationships, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe that could happen, actually.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's awesome.
What a great story.
Thank you for answering that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So hockey versus football. Talk about injuries, the differences, and how do you prepare your athletes for on and off season, and what do you usually see?
What I'm seeing with the Raiders mostly is they just like to get adjusted. They have such the amount of money in NFL compared to NHL is not the same, right?
Yeah.
So they have a whole staff of therapists and athletic therapists and massage therapists, a lot of them from our clinic and stuff like that. So really my job boils down to just adjusting people. And I'll ask them, like, "Do you want some more muscle work?" And usually the answer is no. So, but for hockey, it's a lot of muscle work. So groins are huge with hockey.
Yeah.
And then concussions, obviously, I think they're the same with both hockey and football. But that's a little bit out of my realm. I don't diagnose the concussions. That's on the orthopedic surgeon and the medical director and the head athletic therapist to run through all the testing. And but again, I'm there if they feel like an adjustment or some muscle work, suboccipital work will help. I'll do that. But yeah, I would say that football and hockey are similar in those two ways, because with the skates, you can get stuck in a rut in the ice, and with cleats and football, you can get stuck and you get the knee injuries because of that, like that rotational, if your foot's stuck and you rotate. And then also the collisions, right? You're going to get a lot of that. You're not getting concussions in baseball and basketball as much because you're not getting those collisions.
So actually you brought up a good point. Like concussions, it was a hot thing about 7 years ago. And noticing that, and I'm curious as what you have seen with that, or if you're involved in any of the post-concussion rehab work, because sometimes, even now today, if a person gets a head injury, or, there's always the involvement of the neck. And then the moment you say you have headaches, oh, you got a concussion, when it's actually cervicogenic, or it's coming from there. Do you get involved with some of that work?
Yeah. But as a team, right? We talk about what are the possibilities, what's going on here. That headache's part of it, but they'll also put them on the bike, right? The return to play protocols are, you get them on that bike, and if their heart rate jumps too quick, that's a pretty good neurological sign that they're not quite ready yet. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's neck pain and stuff, and a lot of these guys will do a lot of the muscle work. I'll do some adjustments if they need it. There's some guys I don't adjust necks, like Jack. I'm not touching that neck now that he's had, disc replacement surgery, right? And also he's the highest paid player on our team. But he also doesn't have neck complaints anymore. He just puts on the heat pack before the game and stretches and goes out and does it. So yeah, we're pretty detailed when it comes to, and our strength and conditioning coach, his name's Doug Davidson. I don't know, he's from Ottawa. I don't know that there's a more researched, well-read guy in the strength and conditioning realm when it comes to those sorts of things about getting guys back to play and monitoring it properly. So it's the communication between him, between our athletic therapist, Kyle Moore and Mike Muir. And then if something's needed, then they'll be like, hey, Jeff, here's what we're seeing. We think a cervical manipulation would be helpful here, or even like a CT junction sort of thing. Tell us what you think. We think it'd be good. If you think that's good, let's do that.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
I don't understand why, it's not that difficult. It's just check your ego. And if your priority is the patient, then all right, let's do that.
Well, I do believe that many years ago, I read a research paper that talked about how if you questioned the new medical student, would you work with a chiropractor? They would say yes, but it's not in their education to fit chiropractic or conservative management in their algorithm of care. So by the time they graduate, they ask the same question and they say, well, we don't know how that would fit in, or no.
Right. It's not so much no, it's like, I don't know how that would work.
Yeah. Yeah. But you are educated. They watch you in that environment and they go, oh, that's cool, or that's safe, or that's good, or the patient, the play. I always felt that sports injuries are the best vehicle to driving chiropractic and conservative management to the world. With that said, let's talk hockey and hips. You mentioned something about groin injuries, which to me is sometimes some of the toughest areas to work. It's a precarious area. It's a sensitive area. Yeah. What do you do? Methods: evaluating, treating, preventing.
One of the doctors that was probably the most influential with groins was the first doctor I worked with in Edmonton. His name is Dr. Derek Lamshire. He was the owner of the clinic that I worked at up there. And we were at a pro-am golf tournament, and Ray Whitney, who used to play for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I can't remember who else. Anyways, but he's from Fort Saskatchewan. He's from up there near Edmonton. And we treated him after the golf tournament. And he came in and said, he's like, I've been getting treated for my groin. And when he said groin, he meant adductor. So he was just high up, medial leg. And Derek assessed him for maybe 1 or 2 minutes. He's like, this is a hip flexor. This is not a groin. When you think of groin, a lot of people groin includes 5 or 6 different muscles, right? Pectineus, adductors, hip flexor. But when Ray was talking about groin, he purely meant adductor. So Derek ripped into his psoas for 5 minutes, and then he went out and played an incredible round and would fly back during the season to get Derek to work on his hip flexor. So it's assessing where it's coming from, and it's just a little bit of muscle testing, honestly, is the biggest thing. And look, you need your imaging and your testing to verify if there's tearing, what grade of tearing it is. Is it in the muscle substance? Is it in the actual tendon? And then having the team around us like we do with the Knights. I mean, if it's a tendon injury, then you can do the PRP and these sorts of things to, speed up the healing on a not very well vascularized area. Or if it is intrasubstance, then it's just regular rehab and treatment and laser. And man, there's just so many things that they do with these sports teams now that speed up that process. Blood flow. I don't know if you guys have heard of the blood flow regulation they're doing when you get injured. Like, that's incredible to me. I just learned about that 2 years ago for the first time. It's insane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool. I have a question, for those in the audience, when they think about growing a hip, have you noticed in your expertise a change when you put a athlete in a cleat and his foot is planted on the ground versus a cleat with a long blade, and that blade is what's contacting the ground? So you'll behind hockey, figure skaters and all that blade makes a difference in the pivot point. So how do you use that as your assessment when you're doing your hips and your knees?
Well, at least with hockey guys, we have video. Like if it happened during a game, we can go back and watch the video and see what happened, whether or not. So I would say with football, probably more than hockey, because that blade is supposed to be able to move this way on the ice too, as well as backwards and forwards. The only time the problem becomes is if there's a rut in the ice, like someone's cut deep into the ice, then that blade gets stuck in it, and then it doesn't move. It doesn't rotate, and they get pushed or shoved or something. Like I think who's the hockey player on Spit and Chicklets? Ryan Whitney. Ryan Whitney hurt his ankle with the Edmonton Oilers doing that. So his foot got stuck in a rut and he got pushed backwards and it torqued his ankle, and his ankle was never the same again. So, but with football, your cleats are always in the ground, always.
Right.
So I think I think it would be similar. It's just watching the mechanism, like going back and watching the video of how that happens. So I think it probably more with football than with hockey, because hockey, it should move and typically it does glide. But with football, you're in.
Well, do you see a difference on the stress of the joint being an open chain condition versus a closed chain? I mean, you're on that you have more of a pivot point at the foot, so doesn't it stress out the groin a little bit more, or do you find it pretty equal?
Equal, but yes, there is the groin does come into play there too. I feel like sometimes with certain players, it depends on how well trained they are. If they're taking their training seriously, if they're fueling seriously, if they're because there's, like everything else, there's some guys that take their bodies very seriously and there's some guys that don't. And usually the guys that don't have gotten along on their talent for a long time without the hard work. But then there's the guys that have had to work their cans off, and they're usually the ones that are working out, stretching, talking to the strength and conditioning coach about how do I properly rehab this? They design the program for them and they do it properly. So the fitness of the individual, I think, has a lot to do with no matter what the mechanism, how well they're going to return and how bad the injury is going to be. I don't know if that answers your question, kind of. No,
it does. It's like even in the off season, are you training closed chain or training open chain, or a little bit of both, just to balance out that joint? That's
probably more of a question for Doug. I'm not super involved with the training side, but I believe it's a bit of both.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go deep on a question. It's literally and figuratively speaking, because you brought up and this is more my personal interest, but I'm sure some of the audience will appreciate it. Let's take pectineus muscle. I've seen some groin strains where the pectineus, because it's so sensitive right up there by the pubic rami. What do you do? What do you do for that?
I do ART, and it's a very
tender,
intimate treatment.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for you to use that adjective.
So make sure you're very clearly describing where you're going, what you're going to do, and all the consents have been signed.
And move your junk out of the way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But it's so yes. So but getting into that area, our athletic therapists needle that area too.
Right
up in there.
Come on, for real?
But great success. Like Kyle Moore and Mike Muir with our team are. I do dry needling. I don't do it as much as they do, and they are wizards. Now the guys are squirming a little bit when you get the needles into those areas, and then you stim them
with a needle. Right.
But they come back for more because it feels better after. So for me, it's active release. So I'm just in there with my thumb trying to strip that muscle out and feel its texture, its quality, and just being very careful not to go too hard right off the bat. Ease your way into it. Same thing with like one of the ones that Derek Limeshire taught me was the pyramidalis, like right up above, just above that pubic symphysis, and that's another one you got to make sure you're.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
But it's always fun. It's always fun if the athlete's not freaked out enough at where you're going. I'll sometimes make a joke and go, "Well, we got to tape it down with some like dynamic tape." Or
right.
They go, "What do you mean?" And they go, "Well, first we got to shave the area," and then they go, "Oh, what?" They go, kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah. And make sure you have the relationship with them that you can kid in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you snap on that rubber glove
Yeah.
before you go in.
Pull it down far. Pull it down here and snap. Yeah.
Might as well do a prostate exam while we're at it.
Yeah, while you're there,
Yeah,
it's
while
just
we're-
it's just so close, right?
Right.
I mean, they trained us for that in school.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. Why not try it?
Get that coccyx maneuver as well
man.
as that. Yeah, great.
Well, let's move to the other end of the body. I want to ask you about concussion again, and ask you, do you see more in hockey or in football, or not just you seeing them, but does your healthcare
My
staff,
colleagues, they see them. I'm going to be doing a few more games this year, so I'll be able to speak to that probably a little bit better in a year or two. But with hockey, it's interesting how they do it. At least with our team, we take concussions extremely seriously. There are some old school ATs with other teams that still think that concussions aren't even a thing, which is really frustrating.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because then you get players that come from those teams and either they're irritated that we're doing it the way we're doing it because they've never had it taken seriously before, or they're relieved that it is being taken seriously. So, but in NHL arenas now, they have concussion spotters, whether you knew that or not. So they have people in the arena, anonymous, that radio in to our athletic trainer at the beginning of every period. And then whenever something happens on the ice, you either have, I can't remember what the exact word is, but basically like, it's up to you if you want to bring this person off the ice and do a test, or you need to pull this guy off the ice and do a test. So that obviously happened with Jack when he got rocked, but that was they're like, all right, you do the test if you want, but he just skated off the ice, so that was easy to do. So, but once so with the concussions, I would say maybe 6 or 7 a year we're seeing, but they come in clusters. It's weird. Like, it's like a lot of injuries. Like sometimes you go, 3 or 4 weeks or 7 weeks in the season and every game's clean, no injuries. But then you go 3 in a row and you've got a broken wrist, a broken finger, and a concussion and a pulled groin.
Yeah. Comes in flurries. Yeah.
One thing working with pro sports, and we've all done it, is you get every company wants to send you their latest gadget, and it's the newest and latest thing. Whether it's this is going to heal you faster, this is going to make you jump higher, this is going to make you, I don't know, whatever. And usually 89% of them is crap. But every now and then you get that gem. Yeah. Have you seen any gems in the last couple of years, especially with the shutdown? I think people got really innovative when they were at home. I think the talk of neuroplasticity, flow state, all this stuff just started going through the roof. Have you seen anything that has come out that you're using that maybe isn't in the public yet that has really got you excited?
Not in the public yet. Most of the stuff I've seen that's relatively new that's at the clinic that wasn't there when I started, at the facility, Shockwave, that's been around for a while. But teams are using that a lot. Laser, the laser patches, so you put the little patch on their leg and you click the little thing on, and right over the area of injury, lasers become big, at least with the team. I know that the Raiders I was in there just the other day and they bought the red light therapy, like the bed. Like, it looks like I walked in there, I'm like, why do these guys have a tanning bed? Like, this makes no sense. And then the trainer came in, he's like, yeah, we just got this new red light tanning bed. I'm like, all right. He's like, well, we've got the money, so we spent it. But that's the NFL though too, right? Like but with the Golden Knights, and look, not like the Golden Knights can't spend, they've got good money, but the nice thing is you've got gatekeepers like Doug or Jay, who used to be with us, who know the research. They look it over and they're like, yeah, this looks good. And then you kind of sell it to the GM, or this is, I don't know if it's that good. So not much in the way of recently, to answer your question, Dr. Terry, the newest thing that I've seen was that red light therapy.
What about the one thing I was shocked at because being a Southern California boy, when I worked with the Kings, is how hot these guys get.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're on the ice, even though the public sees them in ice, the arenas are cold. These guys are dying, and they come off every period, strip down, ice packs on every joint.
Yep.
Have you seen this? And it's kind of controversial. We've had some guests talk positive about it, other guests talk negative about the cold plunge.
Our guys love it. Our guys, no, they don't do it between periods. They'll do it before the game to kind of wake their body up, and they'll do like a hot tub and the cold plunge. And then they'll do it after the game, but not during. I had never seen the guys do it during. So yeah, our job when we get to the arena, if we're at a different arena, is to get the hot and cold tubs ready for the team. So yeah, they're doing that. And Dougie, I call him Dougie, Doug Davidson, is a big proponent of that. And if Doug checks the box on it, then you're usually pretty sure it's got some legitimacy behind it. But yeah, our guys use that and quite like it. And I know a lot of them in the off season said they were buying them for their house, to have them at their house as kind of a thing to do in the morning.
Yeah, I'm a Southern California boy, and I'm a pansy. I can't get myself to buy one.
It's
and
so hard to do.
And I've done it, but I know if I buy, I'd have to buy the $4,000 one that's already cold, because I know if I just have a tub and have to go to the store and put ice in it and put water, I'll never do it.
Right.
And so I could go surfing, but that water is like 50 something. This 37-degree water is on a whole new, and I just can't bring myself to do it quite yet.
The craziest cold plunge I did, and it wasn't even a real. I mean, I'm in Canada. Every time I used to
walk outside the cold plunge.
I used to competitively water ski, and by competitively, I mean me and my brother competed in 2 or 3 slalom tournaments up there. So we would be in the lake skiing 3 weeks after the ice was off the lake. And then we'd ski till school started, usually end of August, beginning of September. But so I ran the St. George Marathon twice in 11 and 12. And with my training, when I was done my training runs, I would go fill up just my tub with the coldest water possible, get in it, and then have my wife bring ice and dump it in while I was in there. And that I could handle.
That's a better way. Yeah.
But if all the ice was in there already, it would have been tough.
Yeah.
But see, when you're water skiing, that's my sport. Yeah, you can wear a dry suit.
Correct.
So
that's what I did.
You can be warm. You can't wear a dry suit in the cold plunge. No. It kind of defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah, you'd get made fun of pretty hard if you did a cold plunge in front of the hockey guys in a wetsuit. Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, sorry, I'm an idiot.
I already get made fun of by the size of my forehead by those guys, so I'm not doing anything else.
That means they like you. When they make fun of you, they told me, they go, hey,
that's what I choose to tell myself. Yeah.
Right.
Wow, I must be liked a lot, because I get made fun of all the time. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's great. Has anybody ever tried the cryotherapy, the cryo chamber? Being in the.
I don't know if the Raiders have one. The Knights don't have one. I think Ryan Reeves said one time he tried it and he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't really like it. I think they like that cold plunge better. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a fad for a while there.
Yeah. Well, and then just yesterday I was out getting a bite to eat with Kelly, and we drove past a place just by our clinic here in Henderson. And he said, that place right there that's up for rent, that used to be a cryotherapy place, and the girl was killed in there. She worked there, and after hours she went to do a cryotherapy when no one else was in the building, and the chemicals got to her, knocked her out, and then she fell asleep. She got knocked out and she froze to death.
I read about that after it happened.
Right.
That was wow. That was when it was at its height.
You could walk from walk from where I'm sitting right now. You could be there, and if we walked there, we'd be there in 3 minutes.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That seemed a little extreme to me, because what were some of the temperatures that they would get to? Like crazy cold.
Yeah, below zero or something. It was.
Yeah.
And you could only do 1, 2, or you can only do 1, 2, or 3 minutes. And
right. And I think people felt better because their body went in survival mode and did a chemical dump just to stay survival. Right. So that's why they felt better.
Yeah. Well, when we drove away from Edmonton, when we moved to Vegas, we literally drove away from Edmonton like December 29th. It was -40.
God.
Yeah. So
Who needs a cryo chamber?
When Spencer
Oh my God.
Spencer said, like, I said crazy cold. Yeah, I was like, yeah, like 0. I'm like, 0. Minus 40. Oh man.
God.
I could not be happier to be here and not there.
Oh, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
That is, yeah, I get it. All right, we're going to step into something we call rapid fire questions, Dr. Jeffrey Prince. And what the theme of this is, I'm going to ask you 5 questions and you give me a simple answer to each one. But let me preface, man, if you say something interesting, we're going to just hang on that for a little while because it's always fun to do. But
Sure.
Are you ready?
Go.
All right. Favorite locker room story, football versus hockey?
Hockey.
Yeah? And give me a
Want me to
story.
tell the story?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's ready. Look at that. He's ready. With one.
Right?
So it did happen in the locker room. So I was sitting in my seats behind the bench during warm-ups. Jonathan Marchessault is one of my very good friends on the team. He was on the ice doing warm-ups. He comes over to the bench to stretch. He lifts his leg up on the boards to stretch. And Mike Muir, our AT, is right next to him. And I can see Marchessault looking right at me as he leans in to say something to Mike. And he's kind of smirking and smiling like he always does. He is hilarious. So I knew he said something about me. After the game, like after every game, I treat Marchie for about 20 minutes. And so he's got the French Canadian accent, which means every word that starts with an H doesn't have an H. And every word that starts with a vowel, you add an H to it. So he'll say, like, can you work on my hamstrings and my hankles? So the story is, I get back there, I'm treating him, and he says, hey, Jeff, do you want to know what I was saying to Mike on the ice in pregame? I said, sure. And he's like, I said, hey, Mike, do you think Jeff knows how easy it is to spot him in the crowd with his huge forehead?
Oh, you said that.
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's
Very
a lot
nice.
of other stories with him, but they're not shareable.
Yes, yeah, I would imagine.
Those are between me and him, and I mean, probably the judgment bar later, but.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Again, they must like you. Yeah, if they do that.
Well, I
Question
like
number
them.
2.
I hope they like me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Question number 2, most embarrassing moment working with the pros.
Oh, round 1 against Winnipeg. We had just arrived in Winnipeg. We were up 2 games to none. We're in the hotel, and we go to the conference room to have dinner, and we're also set up for treatment. So we finished treating the guys. We went to grab some food, and we're sitting around the table, and we're kind of sitting in the corner. The rest of the team's kind of off the rest of the room. I'm sitting next to Jay, and the team orthopedic surgeon, Chad Hansen, sitting next to me. I'm eating my steak, and I choked on a piece of steak. So I took too big of a bite, and I went to swallow it, and it would not go down, and it wouldn't go down. And I'm like, oh, crap. This is the first time this has ever happened to me in my life. And my first thought was, sweet mercy, this can't happen in front of these guys. I'll never hear the end of it. So Jay is, so I'm 6'5", about 220. Oh. Jay is 5'7", maybe 170. So I elbow Jay, and he's drinking wine, and it jostles his wine, and he looks at me like he's pissed. He's like, what are you doing? And I point to him, and something's wrong. So at the time, not funny, but now I stand up. He gives me 2 good pops, 2 good Heimlichs. Out it comes. And immediately I'm like, okay, everyone shut up. It's out. We're good. I'm breathing. We don't need to talk about this. They don't need to know. But eventually it made its way around, and yeah. That was the most embarrassing time with the team. Yeah.
You cannot tell a bunch of athletes to shut up.
Shut up.
That's going to make them want to do more.
But at my table wasn't the athletes. It was the medical team. So
that's
basically,
even worse.
Like, all you shut up. We don't need to. Yeah. But then of course, the hotel staff finds out, and they're coming out to me like, "Oh, Mr. Prince, we need to do." I'm like, just I'm fine. Meet me back at my room in an hour and I'll tell you everything you need to know. Just get out of here.
Don't make a big deal. Right.
So you can imagine the jokes, one of
Yeah.
which from Mr. Petrangelo about me not being able to handle my meat.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
Even better. Oh man, I was sweating that one out when you first started telling me.
So for the rest of that series and probably into the next 2 series, I would get on the bus, and Kelly McCrimmon would be sitting there and be like, "Hey Jeff, glad you're still alive." And then whenever we'd have steak after that, I think George McPhee came over behind me a few times to rub my shoulders. He's like, "Chew your effing food, Prince."
That's great.
Oh, great.
Question number 2.
3.
3. I meant 3. Thank you very much. What pro sport that you work with has the best locker room music?
The Knights, because they mix it up a lot. I like all music. I can't listen to too much of anything too much other than like classic rock.
All right.
But yeah, the Knights have some good music. Yeah, they're all over the board. So they've got a song called whenever we'd win a game, a song called "We Are Never Going Home" by the Kungs. That's the first song they'd play. It's a French band. I don't know who found it.
Oh, because I never heard of that one.
So, and then the next song was "Dancing Queen" by ABBA.
Okay, that is interesting.
And then the next song would be like Drake. Like it's all over the map.
Oh, that makes it fun. I guess it caters to everybody.
Yeah,
that's great. That's good. Dancing Queen.
Right.
All right. Question number 4. Now, working on these big athletes, you're a big guy, but it takes some conditioning. What fitness schedule do you keep for yourself that helps you prepare for your job?
I like to swim. So we've got a community pool in the area where I live. So I like to swim. I don't do it as much as I should, but I do that. And then I love the steam room. So I go to the steam room pretty often at my gym that I go to. And then I just got, in the last couple of years, I got the tonal.
Yeah.
Yep. So I work out at home and do that and keep track of my workouts on the app. And I had Doug Davidson come over and check it out to make sure it met his approval, and it did. So that made me feel better, even after I'd spent all the money to get it.
That's after the fact. You better say yes.
Yeah.
Great. Question 5, the last one of the rapid fire questions is, what is Dr. Prince's favorite Vegas restaurant?
Ooh. I like so much food, and everyone that I work with will tell you that. I like everything. It would have to be, oh shoot. Do you guys have favorite Vegas restaurants? Have you guys been to Vegas before?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We go quite
Okay,
a
tell me
bit.
yours while I'm thinking about mine.
No. See, that's why I'm asking, because we'll go there
All
and
right.
like, oh, this is so good. This is so good. This is so good. I mean, that French restaurant in Paris, right on the boulevard, is fantastic. And then, and there's a great Italian restaurant right off the strip that's fantastic. I mean, I know it's kind of hard.
I'm gonna give you 2.
Okay, go.
I got to give you 2.
Okay.
Steakhouse Capitol Grill, right up above Maggiano's, across the street from the Wynn, is unreal, and that's where I was offered this job by Kelly. So that's a special place to me.
Oh yeah.
And then the other place, I like barbecue. Me and my wife like to go to Lucille's Barbecue at Green Valley Ranch. Yeah.
Have you found the restaurants
pro
very
sport out
comparable
there.
to those of Edmonton? Sorry. I mean, Edmonton and Vegas have got to be very compatible as far as restaurants, right?
Is my silence enough of an answer for you?
Oh yeah.
Now, in saying that, I have favorite places in Edmonton, but so when we were back there for the Edmonton series, one of my absolute favorite restaurants is called the Oriental Noodle House in Edmonton, and it's a Vietnamese restaurant. And between games 3 and 4 in Edmonton, I went and grabbed dinner with me and Doug and my dad. So Noodle House is very, very good.
That's beautiful.
Oh.
But no, it doesn't compare to Vegas. No.
All right. I
There was
do
a-
have.
there was a,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No. I was just going to talk about another restaurant, but go ahead. Go ahead. Not important.
I do have to do a plug. So you and I talked a little bit about before this started. So my wife her maiden name is, she's Michelle Marcisseau. My brother-in-law
Right.
is John Marcisseau. They call him Marchie. And so, well, his kids go by Marchie and all that. So, and my brother-in-law is hilarious. So we got hooked into the Golden Knights because when I see my in-law's name plastered on the back of this guy, and all of a sudden the family thread, like everybody has their family thread, just went ballistic. So everybody's watching that. I actually started going, I wonder if they're related, because their father, who left when she was 3 or whatever around there, they don't have a lot of history behind him, but they know he's French Canadian. So they've done some research, but it just drops off. But how ironic is, I'm married to a Marcisseau. My favorite brother-in-law, well, actually I can't say that because I have 3 of them, but the guy I met my wife with,
Say it
I
if
was
it's
having
true.
a beer.
Yeah.
I'll be pounded by the other 2. But I'm having a beer with my brother-in-law John, when I met my wife, and it's just ironic that your best buddy is also my brother-in-law.
Right. And they're 2 different humans.
Totally 2 different humans,
Yeah.
but it sounds like they're 2 incredible humans. So
Correct.
the name goes through, and so shout out to both John Marcisseaus. I think it's fantastic, and it's fun. My wife, we bought so much John Marcisseau memorabilia walking around the house, so during the playoffs, and that's why I watched so much of it, because my wife got totally into it. So if you ever,
And he had himself a pretty decent playoffs.
he had a great playoff. So please pass on my that. Sorry for taking up some time, but pass on that he brought hockey to our house, because we haven't watched hockey in years, and he made the entire Marcisseau family so happy, so proud, and so it's kind of cool to have that same name. So
Well, let's talk after we're off this, and I'll see what I can do for you.
Okay, that'd be great. But I just want him to know that he made a family with the same name very happy.
That's cool.
So
We're gonna wrap this up, but I want to ask one last question, and that is not. You did great, by the way, with the rapid fire. That was fantastic. But this time the floor is yours in closing, and I want to ask you if you want to leave any thoughts about the profession, any views or perspectives, working relationships, and strides you feel that you continue improving on. Anything you want to mention to close up?
Sure. I think it goes along with what you said early on in our conversation, that the healthcare pie is humongous. I think I went to Palmer College of Chiropractic in Iowa, so it's where it started, or at least they say that's where it started. I'm sure there's other colleges that would disagree, but they say it's where it started. And so there's that sense of, a lot of our professors there have been chiropractors for a long, long time and are very anti-medical. My mom was a nurse growing up, so I have no problem with the medical field. But integration is the key. Figuring out where we work and where they work, and once again, being humble, checking your ego at the door. But also, that doesn't mean to be passive and be a pushover either. So there's a way to go about doing it. For some people, it comes natural. I feel like you 2 guys and me, it comes a little more natural, where you can just get along, and you don't have to be the doctor all the time. You're part of a team, and that's all right. So, and then also, when I was in school, I struggled, and this is just me, I struggled with the term subluxation. I did not like that word because the name had meaning. The name had meaning in the medical community, and it meant partial dislocation. And that is not what we're treating. Right. Because if you got a partial dislocation in your spine, I don't want you in my office. So they would just change the name to vertebral subluxation complex. Well, are we that weak that we have to hang on to this one word?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we are. And it's, I mean, look at us now. Obviously, we're not weak, and we have something to offer. But just offer what you can offer, do the best job you can do at it, and be a part of this greater healthcare community, and be happy with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I don't think we're weaker because of that at all.
Oh, Dr. Prince, I really thank you for mentioning that, because that is a really important facet to being able to get along. And in closing, I really want to thank you, because you're in a position to catapult chiropractic to the world based on the fact that billions of dollars worth of athletes affirm your presence in taking care of them before, during, after a game. And it's backed by your whole healthcare team that consists of everybody. So really, great. Oh, I just got goosebumps. All right. Thanks. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. This has been awesome.
You bet, man.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Crackin Backs Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Crackin Backs Podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday. See you next time.